Welcome back, everyone, once again to another Trotec Laser Live on a Friday with myself and Laser Dave. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. You, Don? It's another wonderful Friday for Trotec and Ruby software.
Yes, it's true. Always a lovely Friday for Ruby software, particularly when we can be joined by so many nice people. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. So happy to have you. If you're watching later down the line on YouTube, still very happy to have you watching. I hope you won't hesitate, if you're watching live, to drop some questions there in the chat, and Dave and I will grab them. Just for the record, anything Ruby is our primary focus, but anything Trotec is on the table. If you're having trouble with something, I see we've already got some great questions from Trevor. Certainly something that we will try and grab as many as we can. Dave and I will probably chat for a little while here just while we wait for people to file in, but do not hesitate at any time to say hello in the chat. Let us know where you're watching from. I already see some people joining in from Canada and from the United States. So grateful to have you all here. If you're watching later on YouTube, please drop some questions in the comments below. We always do our best to circle back around to those, a couple times a year. Dave and I will try and answer some of those. And if I'm being honest with you, Dave will answer some of those while I smile politely and nod.
We'll also answer some of them on the next stream as well. So if you follow up on the next stream, if we get those questions, we may see them and answer them on the future one, since we do this monthly.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And you can always find us. Our producers and our background team are really good to try and get those scheduled ahead of time. So if you're not signed up for our emails, definitely please do at troteclaser.com, and you can get the heads up when our next stream is coming, and then you can also find them on YouTube. So got some people joining in from California, from Austin, from Alberta. Very grateful to see you guys all joining in. We'll give about 1 or 2 more minutes here. Dave, I know there were some general topics you and I were hoping to speak about, maybe just in the early minutes here.
For sure.
Maybe, are you ready? We can jump right in.
Let's do it.
I know that you and I have been talking about lately is we've been getting a lot of feedback from customers who are still using job control. And I'd love if we could talk a little bit about what some of the major differences, or what you see as some of the major strengths for jumping over to Ruby. And then as a second part to that question, maybe what are some of your concerns when you're hearing from a customer who is maybe a little hesitant about, what the future for job control might look like?
Yeah, that is one I get all the time. I mean, I understand learning is hard, change is good. If job control is working, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Right. But there is some concerns that I have had recently. The main thing is that job control is no longer supported. We haven't supported it now, coming up on close to a year now. I think it was a year. October. Yeah, October it'll be a year. So 6 months. So we don't support it anymore. So that's not saying it's going to stop working. There's nothing wrong with it. If it works, like you say, if it's not broke, don't fix it. My main concern is that something that's outside of our control is going to potentially break it in the future. If there is a security update, a Windows update, or something like that comes out, all you folks that are still using job control, it could go down. We don't know when or if that will happen, but my concern is if that does happen, we don't want to flood a call saying, oh, we need Ruby now, when it could easily be transitioned in now at any time. No cost to do it, easy to do it, and ultimately it works very similar to job control. It just has all those bells and whistles and features that you used to constantly get updates on job control, no longer are being updated. So there's no changes, there's no updates, there's no speed improvements, there's no parameter improvements, there's no print to cut features and any of these other type of simple processes that are being added, because they're all being added into the Ruby software. And that is my main concern, is you folks out there that are still using job control. Again, there's nothing wrong with it, but it is one of those softwares that is a ticking time bomb in essence. We don't know when or if something is going to happen. If your computer goes down, if Windows is updated, a security update happens, who knows? And ultimately, Ruby is an extension of that. The main screen here, I mean, if I were to shut my camera off on my laser machine right here and zoom out, ultimately, this is like your new version of job control. And that's the way you can think of Ruby. How on job control you had all your files over on the right side? Well, they're on the left side now. This page right here can ultimately be job control. And so you can drag and drop them in here. You can import them. You can file save them, and then you just don't have to hit the print button anymore from your design software. So if you were to drag and drop it from another screen, just literally go from another monitor and drag and drop it, or just like grab from the file that's already here, it's going to drop your file into the actual file. And then you've got your little cursor on the screen, just like you did in job control. So ultimately, if you stick with the main screen here, which is the prepare screen, that's in essence job control. You don't have to put in the parameters prior to sending it anymore. That is one little bit different thing. So you would save the file in your CorelDRAW file, drag and drop it into here, and then you would just select the parameter on your list here. So you can start typing in, say if I want wood, it's going to give you all the wood. You can click on that type of wood. It's going to light your file up. You can snap it to your red pointer. New systems, of course, have a camera, so you can turn that on and make sure that you're in the right location, or if you want to hit it onto your plaque. The other thing, unlike job control, hey, look at this. I want to size it. Something simple as that. It's just sizing it. Or maybe I want two of those. I can hit Control C and V and duplicate and make two of them on here. Or I can hit an array button. So, I mean, as you can see, there are methods to very, very quickly make adjustments to your file. I'm going to cancel that. And then just push print. And so the print button is going to be right here, push to the laser. It's going to send it into the queue. It's going to drop into the queue. I'm ready to go. I can go over to the laser. This will show on the screen and we're operational. So for those folks out there that just don't want to learn Ruby, you don't have to. You just need to learn what I just showed you, a simple process of dragging it into here, putting your parameter in, and then pushing start. You do have to put your parameter in, and that's it. All the rest of the features and intimidation features of all the components and stuff like that, go ahead and dabble in them as you have time, or go to mytrotec.com and watch all my videos. I have a video for each one of these pages, a specific one for the manage screen. It goes through and shows you what all the features are in the manage screen. Another one for the, let me shut the camera off here. This is our edit screen. So this would be like a version of CorelDRAW or Illustrator or what's the other one that a lot of people used? Oh, mine went blank there. The laser one.
Photoshop.
Yeah, no. Lightburn, yeah. I don't use Lightburn very often. A lot of folks out there want. So you can take a Lightburn image that you already use in that software, already comfortable using the software, and then drag and drop it into here. Continue to edit it. Or you can edit from scratch from our edit screen. So I can start drawing a file and add text to it, drop in logos, import. I can nest my shapes. I can drop backgrounds out. So this is basically like a full editor that has all those capabilities on it. You don't have to use it, but it is really nice for the folks that say you drop a file in, you're ready to run, and you're like, oh, I spelled that name wrong, or I need to rechange this file a little bit, or I need to delete something that's on the file. So if I have a file that is ready to go and I want to make a modification to it, I can say, well, I have my camera set to auto turn on, but I don't want to do this one right here. So I can literally say, I want to just remove this one product or delete it or change the color. It gives us this editing. The old job control, I had to go all the way back to my design software, make my adjustment, hit print again, make sure my parameters were set, send it to the laser, wait for it to go through the Windows spooler, which could take, upwards of 20, 30 seconds. Then it jumped back into job control. Then I had to drag it back onto the screen, and then I had to hit start again. Now I can do it right in Ruby and push start again. The goal is to save you time. And Ruby will save you time, lots of time. And so that is the advantage. Use it just from the main screen here, just to get started. In our prepare screen, that's in essence the updated version of job control. And you can run them simultaneously as you learn Ruby. And so you're not having to jump back and forth, because I worry about that day that comes, may or may not come, that it may not be operational for you folks.
I completely agree with everything you just said. And I would encourage you to run them simultaneously while you still get to terms or to grips with Ruby, because there's no, as Dave and I said, there's no urgency from our side, apart from the fear that you might arrive one day and due to something entirely out of your control and ours, that all of a sudden job control just isn't working the way that you intended it to, because of, as Dave said, a Windows update or something that might be entirely, impossible to foresee, right?
Yeah.
And so at that point, Dave is exactly right. Don't be intimidated by the fact that there's a lot of different changes. Dave and I were once very much, at least to speak for myself, I shouldn't speak for Dave, but at one time I was very much pro job control and anti-Ruby. And it is in working with our R&D team, who I know in part are joining us here in the chat, and I appreciate that. I was just messaging with one of them earlier to try and get a cleanup for a question here, actually. But it is in working with them and seeing the great features that they've brought. I would argue that there's never been a better time for somebody who is a job control veteran to want to move over to Ruby, because in terms of any sort of inequality between the facility that the two softwares have, they have never been more at parity than they are today. And
Ruby is so much better. It is so much better. It's light year. I mean, you see how lightning fast it is, and I'm running remotely. My laser's in another room. It's not plugged into it. I'm literally running remotely. I'm seeing the camera remotely. I can run 25 lasers off of one computer now and interlink between them automatically. I could run, the internet work capability. I can see through the cameras. Like I say, the software has light years. Our software team has done an amazing job. And, and that is earned. They have earned my respect as an advanced operator. I wouldn't go back to job control, in my opinion. It's kind of archaic.
I would also argue too that, one of the things I like to talk about with customers is that Ruby has sort of ironed out a lot of the things with job control that I personally found a little bit frustrating from time to time, not to get, too far down that rabbit hole, but things like having to remind myself, depending on the type of software that I was using, what the thickness had to be in order for something to be distinguished as a cut line. Just little
line thickness, colors, all those things.
No
Ruby corrects them all.
Right? Exactly. Things like needing to have the laser that's the PC that's connected to my laser has to be powerful enough, not just to open an internet browser, as you just outlined, but also has to be powerful enough to run whatever my design software is, in case I have to make a change to the image, whatever it might be, right? At this point, not only is Ruby compatible with more or less any type of computer that you want to throw at it by using kind of an internal networking structure, but then also at this point, you could have it run directly through a switch on a computer that is very, very basic, and that you do not need to worry about buying some super top of the line, fantastic, very likely the computer you're already using to run job control shouldn't
can work just fine.
Pick up Ruby and go straight ahead.
No problem. And you can run from any operating system, Linux, Mac, iOS. I'm running on a Mac right now. No problem.
Yeah, which is something that people always requested. And so we were so excited to be able to share that. And now I forget that it's an exciting thing, for a long time. Like it's almost become rote now, and I forget.
Yeah, it's effortless now. Years. Just effortless. I mean, the other day I had my iPad out. I took a photo from my iPad, dragged it into Ruby on my iPad, ran the trace, ran it to a cut path, and then hit send, walked over to the laser and hit start. So I literally vectorized a logo from a like brochure, vectorized it, traced it, and cut it out within about 30 seconds from my iPad.
So Matthew, if I can convince you one step at a time to please keep coming back to these webinars. We'll be happy to answer any questions you might have as you download Ruby for free from our website. And
mytrotec.com.
That's right. And then at that point, once you start to dip your toe into the water, if you run into anything where it doesn't make sense, just keep a little scratch pad next to your computer. You'll still have job control available to you. So it's not going to, overwrite or delete the other. But just scribble down your questions as you go, and then I hope you'll bring them back to these streams, and we'll be very happy to help you. Or you can always reach out to your local office, wherever that might be. We're here to help as best we can. I'm seeing some questions come in, Dave. Did you want to maybe we can?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Hop over here to some of these questions that are in the chat. I wanted to go to Trevor here first because he was in even before the stream started and had a great question. So Trevor mentions that he was trying to engrave on a rubber tumbler with stainless steel underneath. And when it was engraving, he was seeing that the rubber was catching on fire. And do we have any suggestions for how to avoid fires or maybe excessive smoking when running a rubber style tumbler? So I assume that he's talking about like a rubber casing on the tumbler, as opposed to the powder coating style that we normally see.
Rubberized coating, instead of I've seen them where they're, instead of being powder coated, they're rubberized. So it gives you kind of that grip, and they've in essence been dipped into a liquid rubber, and so the coating's on the outside. And as many of you folks out there have run rubber, it is notoriously it flares. That is a side effect. And then of course on the rotary, we always say, hey, take your nozzle or nose cone off so that it don't potentially interfere with the cone, or the cone doesn't hit the actual rotary itself. If your diameter is large enough and it's not going to interfere, my suggestion first front is to use the cone on it if it fits, but make sure you move it over the top, that it's not going to cause any damage. That's going to keep any flare down. Whenever you're running rubber, that is a common problem. And so make sure your air is running full up. And then the other option is, your power settings can make a difference depending on what that coating is and how thick it is. 100% power, and of course you're trying to get through it. Likely you may need to potentially hit it with more than one pass. But if you do need to hit it with one pass, depending on your wattage, of course, I would be maybe 100% power, between 30 and 50% speed on an 80-watt laser to get through that rubberized coating. If you do see some flare-ups, there's not a lot you can do. One, make sure the air assist is turned on. If it is a large enough diameter, you can use the cone on the rotary. We just suggest taking it off for those folks that are doing small diameters so that it doesn't interfere or hit. If it's not going to hit, you're fine to still continue to use it. That is going to protect your lens as well as keep the flame down. Use the small mouth cone nozzle so it gives you a higher pressure, and that should help. Or go with a little faster cut speed and then run it with 2 passes so you don't have as much heat build up. So do 2 passes instead of 1. And therefore you're not going to build up as much heat. That's another method of doing it. May take a little bit. If you double the speed and then run 2 passes, your time's going to be about the same, but you should see less flame.
Yes. I don't really have anything I can add to that. I did have a question for you in terms of supposing that as part of making the adding of the nose cone a little simpler, he were to move from, let's presume he's using a 2-inch lens and he were to move to a 2.5-inch lens. So he has a little bit more of that kind of Z offset. So he has more space for that cone. Will that have any meaningful impact on the amount of air assist pressure and the amount of kind of clearing benefit that he's getting from the air assist? Is he still better to stay as close as possible as long as that nose cone is fitting?
Yeah, unfortunately, the drawback of going to a longer focal length and still using the cone, yes, it is still effective and it's going to be better than no cone. You are right there. The drawback of going to a further away is the cone is, especially if you go to like the 2.5-inch lens, the cone is the same size. So the air it's further to get down to that point itself. The other drawback is your beam diameter is larger. And because the spot size or laser beam is bigger, you're going to get more flame, even though you have a little bit of flare. So the closer you can keep the nozzle and the smaller your diameter, the less amount of flame you're going to get. So in that situation, the longer wave or getting away from it. Now, if you have no choice and you got a little bit of clearance issue, a 2.5-inch lens with the cone still having the air assist directed is going to be better than a 2-inch lens with no cone. So there is going to be an advantage in there. But if you can use the 2-inch lens with the cone, you have a beam diameter of approximately 0.005 of an inch, and your nozzle is as close as it can possibly be, it's going to be the best. Where a 2.5-inch lens is a beam diameter of 0.007 of an inch. That few thousandths of an inch larger in size, it's like magnifying glass in the sun. When you were burning leaves, as you kind of deviate out a little bit, your what we call power density, or the intensity of that laser, is reduced, more heat is built up, and you tend to get more flame. So there's advantages when it comes to tolerance, disadvantages when it comes to like flames and stuff like that. So I see your logic, but there's definitely a plus and minus to that change out.
No, I appreciate it. And it's one that I think you mentioned very, very first thing, but it's one that I always shy away from because I know rubber has a history or sort of a reputation for being one of those really tricky materials. Certainly doable, but definitely a trickier material to get right.
Dirty, stinky, and flamey. Yeah, it's definitely one of those messy materials.
That's my 3 nicknames in high school. I'm going to move down to this question from Colin. And I sent a quick message because I do happen to know Colin.
That's a great question. I don't know that I've tried that.
So running the text along the inside of a curve and then moving it to the outside curve. It is one that I will admit I have not personally tried. And so
no, I haven't tried it either. That's a great question. So, I mean, if you were to take some text.
Full screen here for us. This is another cool Ruby feature I should mention that isn't currently, to my knowledge, available in Job Control, is the ability to run curve along, or text, along a vector line, which is really
cool. Exactly. So So in essence, we have the ability to basically do fit text to path around the curve. And I don't believe there is a way to, it's not one I've tried. So let's see what's happened here. So yes, I mean, you can literally just click the button in the corner of the curve and then move it around. And I believe that's a great question. Usually have all the answers.
Well, this is what this stream is for.
Yeah.
If you can stump Dave and I, it just means that we get something to go off and look at in our spare time. That's all.
Yeah, I'm just I'm trying to see if there is a method of doing that, of actually
flipping it to the inside of the curve as opposed to
yeah. It's a great question.
Yeah, something for us to.
So I mean, you can add dynamic data to it. Yeah.
Well, keep that in mind because that
I may have to play around with that one. I don't have an actual answer for you. I'm sure the guys that make the software are screaming at me because again, I've just not tried this. So yeah, that is a great question. I'm going to play around with that, and I don't want to sit there and try to experiment here for all you folks that are waiting. But I will get back to you on that one. Watch the next stream. I will definitely add that, and if there is the possibility of it, we will see if that is possible. It's just not one that I've ever come across, but I can see how you do need that aspect. I mean, in softwares like CorelDRAW, it was quite eady. You could just drag it inside or outside. They had all the different tools to be able to do that. And that's usually how I've done it. I've not really used this feature since it's more of an advanced feature. So I would use a graphic, Illustrator or CorelDRAW is usually what I've done in that case. And so it's just not one I've played around with on Ruby yet. And a little embarrassed that I have to say that, but I don't know.
No, you don't have to be embarrassed. That's the whole point of these streams. I mean, look, I would rather that we get stumped from time to time and have something that we can bring
there you go.
And then you guys can tune back in next month and find out.
Oh, yeah, there we go. I will have an answer by the next stream.
You're the man. I'm going to jump ahead to another question here because you mentioned dynamic data and serializing data. I've got a question here from Jim Ashby who asks, is there a way to serialize numbers in design? So I think if I'm understanding the question correctly, Jim, and you correct me in chat if I'm not, but I think you're asking about kind of dynamic data and doing auto incremental serialized numbers, maybe using a dynamic data function or using the even the array function if we're getting really kind of interesting.
Yeah, dynamic data is nice because it gives us the ability to, and I don't have a file for it right now queued up, but ultimately what dynamic data does is it allows you to design one graphic on the screen. So it could be a serial tag, for example, and then you can create a list of numbers, names, details, whatever it is that you want on like an Excel spreadsheet. And then when you drop in the dynamic data, you can literally go into your main screen here, and then you can click on data source right here. And I can literally just drop that dynamic data, the Excel file directly into here, and then I can access that. And what it allows me to do is say I have a list of, like I say, names or serial numbers. And then when I create it, and there's a really nice video on the main Ruby site that actually showcases it from, let me see if I can get into it right here. I can show it to you because they do a great one, I believe. Let me see. I believe I'm trying to remember which one it was on that shows the dynamic data. Oh, wait. I do know where it is.
In the meantime, I should say too that I mean, maybe if this is something you guys would like to see a more focused stream about, it's also something that Dave and I have talked about. Certainly, I think we want to do some focus streams on specific applications that you guys are excited about. So if it's something you want to see, definitely please let us know. We'll be happy to kind of try and dedicate, a 30-minute or 40-minute stream around how to get this working for you.
So here it is. Here it is. Basically, we can show it here.
Teamwork. Let's go. So in this case, we're using the dynamic data as a means to fill out those individual, maybe they are name tags or they are individual serial numbers, similar to the types of applications that you're recommending, right?
So I didn't know if could you guys hear that audio?
No, but I think since we've shown where to go to find it, I think that's fine. So
and so in essence, from the Ruby software, just hit the little library book at the top. It looks like a little booklet, and that's going to take you into our basically Ruby help page. And then all I did is click on video tutorials. So in the video tutorials that they have here, scroll down and then they have dynamic data. This is literally going to walk you through step by step on how to do serial numbers, barcodes, and dropping them in. And so what you do is you create a single tag, and then you identify each location where you want it. And then you say, hey, I need this dynamic data to go in here. And say there's 10 different names or 10 different serial numbers. When you drop it in there, it's going to array, when you use the array feature, it's going to array 10 tags, and each tag will automatically have a different number, name, logo, whatever it is that you want to grab, or different name and text or serial number on it. And then when you array it together, you now have, if you have 50 names, 50 serial numbers, you're now going to have 50 tags with a different number on each one automatically. And the video does a great job in showcasing it. But you do need to generate that in your like Excel or something like that, so you can give that list or drop the list of names into it to tell us which of those lists in. And things like Excel, all you have to do is just say, start with this number, end with this number, and it'll auto create like serial numbers for you. So you don't have to type them individually. And then you drag them into dynamic data. And it's kind of like what they used to call print merge in CorelDRAW. If any of you folks out there used CorelDRAW.
The one I always think of is name tags, where if you're doing name tags for a big event and people have sent in their names and you don't necessarily want to have to go through and risk making a typo when you're typing your 60th name to go on a name tag, right? To use a CSV form. I've done it.
Yeah.
Using a CSV
and then make the
form
customer send you the list, so that if they spelled it wrong, that's on them. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Oh my gosh, 100%. Yes. Learn from my mistakes. So another quick question here from Trevor, who asks that it's been about a year since they bought their 360 and they never calibrated the camera. So what is the process to make the machine camera operational?
Oh, that's a great question. You want to calibrate the camera, because I mean, if I wanted to drop a design into, say, this, if I wanted to create a file and put it onto this plaque, and I wanted to ensure that it was going to be at this spot exactly. If my camera is not calibrated, it's not going to put it there. I mean, I can put the red pointer into the corner and position it and snap it that way, the old school method. But if I want to get nice and close in there and really get that engraving right to the end, or if I'm cutting something out and I've already got a cutout on there and I don't want to hit that spot and I want to, grab it and rotate it or something like that to fit it into a spot, if my camera is not calibrated, it's not going to do that. To do that, I have a video on our YouTube channel. Just type in VDP or Vision Design and Position Camera Calibration. Watch that video. You should have received a blank mat with your laser machine. You will literally need to engrave an actual dot pattern on your machine. And then once that's done, it takes about 20 minutes. It's one time only. You only have to do that. Then you'd stick it underneath the camera, and then you would calibrate the camera. And to calibrate it, you just go to your drop-down menu. You would go down to Settings. You may hit no, I don't want to save that. And then click on calibration. And when you click on calibration, if you want to download the files, here's where they're actually at. You can download them right here. And then once it's engraved, it'll look like this on the screen. This is what the actual calibration. Then with the lid down, click on calibrate. And you want to focus on it first. Make sure they're focused onto this. And it's going to sit there for upwards of a minute, and it's going to calibrate it. For the bigger machines, then you would open up the lid and then do calibrate open lid here. And then once it's done, it'll show you a live view, and then you hit save calibration and you're done. You don't have to do it again unless some reason things change, or if you move the machine or something like that. Or I would recommend running through this process again. It takes 2 to 3 minutes once the mat is completed. And now when you go back into your screen and turn your camera on, I can ensure that when I'm placing this in the center of this plaque, it's actually going to be in the center of the plaque.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is what the camera calibration is highly used for. Now, if you've got weird shaped objects and stuff like that, it'll look a little weird because of the two-dimensional plane that you're seeing for a three-dimensional object. That can be tricky. Or if there's curvature to it, I wouldn't trust the camera as much because the two-dimensional aspect of the camera has a hard time seeing three-dimensional objects. And so in those cases, I would still use the red pointer for targeting and positioning. Or if you get way out into the corners, trust your pointer more than the camera itself. But if you're doing residual material and you want to make sure that it hits that material and positions and stuff like that, ensure that your camera is calibrated properly. It will make a difference in quality. Also,
I just posted the link to that video that Dave mentioned in the chat. So if you want to go check it out after the stream is done, of course, by all means, check it out using the link that I posted there and you'll find it. But as Dave says, if you search vision design and position calibration, you'll find it right away.
Yeah.
Question here from Prosser Design. So when filling letters for etching with internal shapes like a B, P, R, etc., how to remove the fill from the internal space. When I select the letter, it bolts the entire shape, and I cannot deselect the internal space. So I think in this case, I know how I would do it in Illustrator, where maybe you have a logo. Say you have a logo that says Pepsi underneath it, or Pepsi, if we're being. And when you trace that, the B in Pepsi comes in as a solid shape as opposed to almost like an outline trace as opposed to distinguishing. So I think he's wondering about how to knock out those inside internal shapes inside of an item.
Yeah.
So
okay.
The Toros logo here. How would you knock out that space between the Texas and the outer ring? And if I'm understanding that incorrectly, I hope you'll correct me.
No, and I think that's what you're talking about. Yeah, and what he's talking about is the difference between something that's grouped and combined.
Yes.
In a design standpoint, there's two categories when it comes to creating a graphic. There's a grouped object, which are several different objects. So this is grouped, or this is two separate objects. If I were to select them together and hit group here, now it's considered one object. So I'm not going to have any issue with that object itself. But if I select it again and then hit ungroup, I think I have more than one or a much larger object on the screen here. Hit ungroup. I don't know what else is there.
Well, now it's ungrouped everything. Yeah.
It ungrouped everything. So the problem is, yes, and Illustrator or your design software is much better suited for this in actually taking these individual components and break it. There's a difference between grouping and ungrouping and combining. And when you combine something together, you need to you have to break it apart. Or in Illustrator, it's called explode. Once you explode those graphics, each individual element is its separate entity. And so if you wanted like the surrounding area filled and not the other area, you would have to use a fill tool. It's not going to be like a line of text that allows you to select it individually. So you'd have to select them and then combine them together as an object. So if you were to take two circles and group them and then fill the circles, it's going to give you a solid black fill. But if you take two circles, one inside of another, like the letter O, and then combine them and then fill it, it's only going to fill the outer like a donut shape. So that is the difference between group and combine. And Ruby doesn't have the ability to explode and or break apart in that method yet. You would need an advanced graphic software for those features.
I will say if you are, by any chance, using Illustrator, the tool you want is the Shape Builder tool. So the Shape Builder tool will allow you to select individual shapes and then choose what you want, as Dave says, to kind of, knock out or punch out, or essentially, as he says, it is basically exploding the entire graphic and then allowing you to choose which pieces you would like to include or delete.
So there is some limitation still in the Ruby software when it comes to advanced image editing, and that is one that is not available in the Ruby software yet, is the ability to explode or break apart a combined object.
Gotcha. But I do know that we have, as I mentioned earlier on, if you're joining us a little bit later, we do have members of the R&D team watching. So maybe, so there's a great example. So just like that.
So this was two objects. And so if I were to have something like this and I wanted to do that, I could come up here, break it apart, and then, change it to just a different color. Yeah. Or I could delete that out. But in this case, if I delete it out, but there's no way to combine that together to make this one entity where the hole in the center is got that, you can see the grid here, where you can see it. It's just a white at this point. So that is the difference in here. I can place it over in white, and white won't engrave, and that works. So that's kind of a workaround, but it doesn't allow me to combine it together. Let me try it actually. Oh, actually it did do it. So once it's put together, it did combine it. Hey, there you go. I learned something.
There you go.
So yeah. So you can see the grid behind it. So basically it made it transparent. So they have made an adjustment on there. So there is limited ability on that. Good to know.
I should mention too that as for our question, we don't need to get into it right now, but as for our question earlier about reversing the path side for text, we did get an answer from Tim in the chat. So something that you
awesome.
Yeah. That I want to keep up with some of these other questions. So question from, let me see, I have bwells3706. Thank you for watching, by the way. Can you explain the difference between the path planning options?
Path planning, or you're talking on the parameters, right? I think he's talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's a great question.
Versus speed versus some of the others. Throughput.
Yeah. So in the parameters and set here, we have here they are, or be on the B vector basically at this point. Yep. So there it is. So there are 3 different path plannings, and in essence, what these are the ability to look ahead and basically slow down for curves for accuracy and detail. So you have 3 different choices. It defaults to throughput because most people want it done as quickly as possible. And what these are going to do is it looks ahead, it outlines and uses a quantifiable algorithm to determine whether or not how much it needs to slow around the curves and corners to get the most efficiency out of it as possible. Throughput does an amazing job, but if you have very advanced type cutting and need more capabilities, mil spec, engineering designs, or something like that, you may want to jump it down to standard or accuracy. What this is going to do is it's going to slow down into the curves a little bit more. It's going to take a little bit more time to go smoother around those tight bends, those tight curves, those corners, and then the acceleration aspect. It will affect overall time by going to these other settings, but your quality level is going to go up. So if you're cutting out something and your X versus Y needs to be really accurate, and you're fading a little bit into the corners on, say you're doing fabric or something, you're getting a little perforation, you can increase frequency and it's still not working. Maybe you need to go to a standard or an accuracy setting. So in essence, it's kind of like a teenage driver, a middle-aged driver, and a senior driver. Once you have some experience, you're going to take a little more cautious in the turns, in the corners. You're not going to go quite as fast, but your quality is definitely going to improve. Throughput kind of throws that out a little bit. You're in essence going faster. You're going for efficiency more than quality. Honestly, the throughput though is so good these days. And in most no applications do I tend to go that until it is a real engineering based or mil spec standard or something. I don't even use those other ones that often. How about you, Don?
I'm the same. I'm throughput through and through. I find that 99% of the time, unless I'm doing like an application that's say like marquetry or some sort of inlay, particularly a really, really tight inlay where I'm worried about angles being perfectly what I want them to be, I find the throughput is so good that genuinely I've never had an issue with it. But it's one of those things where I don't. So Dave is right in as much as you will see a difference in, if you change that path planning time, you will see a difference in the overall application time for it to run. But I'm willing to bet it's probably not huge. I mean, we're probably talking about a number of seconds. It really just depends on, as much as possible, and maybe this isn't relevant in a modern production environment, but as much as possible, I would love to encourage you to try and do a little bit of testing with every application, even if it's something you already know well, because even with updates to Ruby, I've seen stuff that I used to approach in one particular manner, and then I've, gone back and tried something different because of a change that's been made to the overall software, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I actually get a way better result doing X, Y, Z, right? So it's something that, where possible, I would always encourage you to continue to play around with your laser and try and, never be afraid to experiment and never be afraid to try new things, because you might just find something that works better. But as an overall, I think it's fair to say that both Dave and I were on throughput 98% of the time.
One great application that kind of showcases the benefit of it is puzzles. When you're cutting
Oh,
puzzles,
yeah.
it's massive amounts of curved vector lines, and they're single line through the puzzle as you're cutting out a puzzle shape. And, the difference from running standard or throughput, by the end of the day, it is upwards of 10 to 20% more puzzles at the end of the day just by using throughput. It's the same power, it's the same speed of the laser, but it's looking ahead for all those curves. So you folks out there doing puzzles, try the difference. Now, and realistically, the accuracy is not much different on something like that because you're just trying to cut them as quick as possible. So that was one early on. I was working with a puzzle company, and we went to the throughput. And the other thing is running the throughput in Ruby versus job control, there was a 20% efficiency boost running Ruby at the same power and the same speed, because the algorithm in Ruby for vector path planning is so much better. You will see a dramatic boost to your productivity. No power difference, no speed difference, but because the software looks ahead, calculates it better, and it's more efficient, you see more products in the day, and you're going to make more money on your product simply by switching to a free Ruby software.
I want to challenge you on that though really quickly, because as devil's advocate, this is something that I hear from customers here and there, and I want to be sure I'm not telling tales out of school. One of the pushbacks that I had on moving over to Ruby, the things that I was worried about is, am I going to have to revisit my entire set of material settings that I've spent so long trying to get tuned up and just perfectly right? And my response to that, by and large, is no. Like, by and large, it's still the same laser. You're just interacting with it in a slightly different way. What would be your answer to that question if I said, Dave, I've been running my puzzle business for 20 years and I have all my settings perfectly set up. My fear of switching to Ruby is I'm going to have to go back to step one and recalibrate all this stuff again.
And that's a great fear. I mean, you don't want to recreate the wheel. Yes, learning is hard and software change is hard. But the other aspect is, do I have to go back and do all this work? I wouldn't want to do that either. I wouldn't blame you at all, especially if you've got hundreds, if not thousands of potential files. The nice thing is when they incorporated Ruby right from the very beginning, they took that into account. Your parameters, as well as all your files, can be imported directly in there. You can literally go up into your drop-down menu into Ruby and then come in down into the settings. And then you can, actually, I'm sorry, not settings. You would go into materials in this case, and then I can hit the three little dots, and I can export from job control all my settings and parameters, and I can import here's the parameters one, or I can import all the materials in here. You can also export all your files, your designs, your parameters. So all the presets that you have already done. Yes, now you'll have a better path planning algorithm. You're going to find that they're faster, but your power, your speed, your frequency, your settings, all the things that you've dialed in will immediately drop into here, and you'll still have access to them. So that when I click a material in Ruby, and if I want to cut this out and want to physically cut that out and come over to my material settings here, all the lists that you have on that was in job control will now show over here. And if I have a specific name for it, I can search for it. I can drag down. You can see all the different material parameters that we have. You can also go to our website and download more. Or if you don't see them on here, you can literally go into the materials. This is another thing a lot of people don't know. Go into the materials, hit drop down, and then hit import from cloud.
Yep.
And so if they're on our site, or you can import them from a file from another computer. If you've backing up, or say you buy a second laser and you don't want to have to put them all over one at a time, you can save them all out of that one, import them into this one. And this now is a clone of your other machine, and it's duplicated. These are also, you can back them up. You can save them onto a cloud yourself. And so if they're custom, you can export them out. You can select them all, export them out. There's even a service section where it takes all your files, your designs, your parameters, your custom files, and exports them in one blank form, or one kind of zip file. So everything that makes Ruby special on this system, you can back up. And to do that, and I do suggest everybody do that, just in case your computer laser goes down, go into settings. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And then go into service. and then hit back up all data. This is literally when you hit that button, it's going to go from your laser machine and back it up to a zip drive, throw it on a cloud drive, a flash drive, your own personal server, just as a personal backup, just in case. We all know computers can be unpredictable from time to time as the years pass, but this is going to be a little insurance policy. Do this every 6 months or so, just for your own personal peace of mind. If you've got really critical files and customer files, do it weekly.
So, 100% couldn't agree more. I don't need to add anything to that. I couldn't agree more. Quick couple questions here from TAC Templates, and I know there is another one. Here it is from Jim that basically asked the same question about upgrading to a camera. So the answer to this is going to depend on the particular model and the particular year that you purchased it in, because there have been upgrades to the electronics that allow it to communicate with the camera, and it's going to be very slightly different for different models. So, for example, the most recent ones we released were on the 100s and 300s, and a 100 or 300 would only be able to upgrade to a camera if it was purchased from 2025 onward, and somehow was also not one of the ones that already came with a camera in the lid. Whereas the 360s or 400s, you could backdate a little bit further. But 2017, unfortunately, I believe might be a bit too far back in order to get set up with a.
Yeah, my impression is that none of the older ones, that they could be upgraded to the print and cut camera, not the overhead camera. Yes, and so that is a lot of confusion. There's two cameras on the lasers. A print and cut camera for registration, and the camera we're seeing on the screen here, the overhead camera. Overhead camera cannot be upgraded on any of the old machines. The electronics, computers, the lid, the harness, the wiring are all different.
Yes. So also, just to differentiate, the names are also quite similar. So the overhead camera is the vision, design, and position camera, whereas the print cut camera is the job control vision camera. But I think in the future, the nomenclature of those might change a little bit to make them a little bit more, because as you can tell with Dave and I, we do mostly refer to them either as the VDP or the overhead camera and the print cut camera, because that really is kind of their main, their main piece. I do have a question here from, here we are. So this is similar to a question that we fielded last month, but I wanted to throw this to you. When engraving a wedding photo on acrylic, I'm having a hard time grayscaling a bride in full white dress and a man in a black tux. In fact, I think we might have looked at this question previously. I think we might have answered a version of this last month. Yeah,
we had one last month, exact type of question. Yeah, it's one of those tricky ones where using the tone curve feature in Ruby to basically bring the blacks to a little bit of a dark gray and then the whites to a light gray, so that that spectrum can be seen when you actually engrave them. And then it has to be done in an inverted state. That was hard to say. In inverted state, so that the negative on the screen is going to engrave as the positive on the acrylic, so that the white will be black, and the black will be white, but they also can't be pure black or white. They need to be a shade of grayscale. And so a tone curve is how you would do that in the software itself. I don't know if I have a photo.
Well, and I know that we got into it pretty good at the end of the stream last month, so I would also suggest,
maybe look at that one.
Archives. Yeah. But Dave is exactly right. It's going to be a tricky question of balancing tone curves, and a solid black outfit next to a solid white outfit is really engraving on hard mode in a lot of ways, because it is a tricky balance to try and not just have it all come through washed out. But this is the tone curve feature that Dave was just talking about.
Yeah, and so you can adjust the tone curve, but you got to remember that basically the white can't be full white and the black can't be full black, and then also you have to think in the opposite, because once you apply this, I'm also inverting it before I run it on something like acrylic. So the black is not white and the white is not black. They're opposite. So the black tux would, in essence, be not engraved, and the white dress would be engraved fully because it's going to turn white. When you etch acrylic, it turns white. So it's a negative state or an inverted state material. And this can really blow a lot of people's mind, because they start to go crazy and be like, you know what, it's not worth it. And so it does take a little bit of trial and error. The key is bring that tone curve down, so the black is a dark shade of gray and the white is a light shade of gray, but just enough to where it can be seen. Also, your parameters can make a big difference, whether you over or underpower it as well. So lots of technique. Watch the last month's stream. It should be on the same channel, and you can watch the whole process of where we kind of went through that.
Definitely. And also between Laser Dave and also my colleague Mike Clark, there are some great things on the YouTube channel about photo engraving specifically that I would highly encourage you to go check out. I think photo engraving is really one of those applications that is, it's up there certainly. But one you can really make a lot of money doing once you kind of get your head around that special alchemy of.
I have a 90-minute seminar on just that topic. Just covering, lenses, materials, reactions, software, just for doing photos. So it's a loaded question. It's not something I would type in Laser Dave and photo. And I've got several different versions of, one is a seminar, it goes through step by step, other one's a video. But watch those videos and tutorials. They will truly help you. There's software out there, third-party softwares that can improve your process, make it a little more user-friendly for you, consistency, and they take care of all those tone curves for you. If you're doing it a lot, maybe worth the investment. But there's a lot of tips and tricks to that topic.
Fantastic. I know that we have some people on the back end here looking into your question, Tack, about the rotation in Ruby, so not to worry, it did not get missed. I had another quick question here for Dave that I wanted to kind of bring up based on another one of our kind of general subjects that we were hoping to kind of cover off. When you're talking about sort of, we've touched on, materials kind of throughout the entire stream. But one of the kind of major basics that I feel like we don't get to talk about enough is testing for perfect material settings. So trying to find what that balance is if you are, Trevor, and you're trying to do rubber for that first time, and how to, I know we talked about, rubbers may be a tough example because it involves also a lot of air assist and calibration and that sort of thing. But, if you're doing a material for the first time, do you have a kind of go-to playbook for finding those perfect settings?
Yeah, I've memorized every material setting for every wattage and every material on the planet.
That's fortunate. Yeah.
So it's really quite easy for me. Running for 30,000 hours makes it really easy. I can just tell you the setting. No, I kid a little bit. Most people aren't going to have that experience. There are definitely some techniques to doing that. And just because the material is a preset doesn't mean it's the right setting. There is no wrong setting. Ultimately, I've done some videos where I kind of showcase the ability to kind of dial in parameters. There is, our parameter is one that we have basically collectively said, hey, this gives us a good result. And a lot of times it's a cross between quality versus speed. But we don't know what you want. Do you want depth? Do you want the best possible quality? Do you want the highest possible productivity? So how do you make those adjustments to the laser itself? And that's where things get a little bit more complicated. Within the Ruby software and the material settings, whenever you select a material setting, you see all these numbers. And if you've never really got into it, what do they mean? There's not, when it comes down to dialing in a setting, it's going to determine what you want to see. If, say, you're engraving wood and you don't like the wood setting that is the preset. So, say I have, this is a wood setting. And so the preset setting right now that I have for cherry wood is 100% power and 50% speed. This is going to give a substantial amount of depth, nice crisp down into that surface of the wood. But maybe I want to run a little faster because it's taking too much time. There's nothing says you can't take this speed up or down. What it's going to do is increase the amount of depth you get in the material. But as you take that number, anything called speed is going to take more time. And so the higher this number, the faster it's going to go, but the less depth you're going to go and the less darkness you're going to go. The same holds true for your cutting settings. If it's not cutting through, typically I'm always, when cutting, I'm going to run at 100% power, and then I'm going to adjust the speed until I'm getting through. What I like to do is, still to this day, I'm going to run a test. I'm going to take a little piece of that and I'm going to draw a square with a circle inside. And the reason I do both is I want a straight cut and I want a radius or a round cut. This is going to kind of give me both axes of the laser. So I will draw a square with a circle inside, and then I will literally cut it out. And if the setting at 100 power and 1.2 speed is not quite through and it just didn't go through, maybe I'll take it to 1.1. Maybe I'll take it to 1. And then if I do make a change, so maybe I make that 1.0 and I like it, I can come up here and I can hit save, or I can store it and as a new setting. Maybe I rename this as fit cutting, or I can overwrite the existing one. And so this allows me to fine tune, modify, adjust, and or calibrate the settings to your liking. And so find the material. If it's a little deeper, if you like it a little deeper, your own personal preference, play with it. In the case of something like wood, I would leave the power at 100. A lot of the settings also, Austria has an offset a lot of the times, which makes your wood a little darker. So you don't have to engrave it very deep to get a darker effect. My personal preference is to shut that off because I like a little more crisp, sharp depth. So I've shut that off and take the Z-axis to 0. So that's a personal preference. But I basically have calibrated my settings to my liking for my output. If you want to increase the details, you can also adjust what's called the resolution. So this is how many times that laser goes back and forth as it engraves 1 inch. So if you're engraving a 1 inch block into wood at 125 DPI, you can literally count that laser going back and forth 125 times as it engraves 1 inch to travel, or up to 1,000 times. The more it goes back and forth, the more detail and the more time it's going to take. But it's overlapping more often, like a printer applying more lines of ink, basically, so that you get more effect. And so these are the settings. There's not a lot of it. You can ignore a lot of these other settings, leave them as defaults until you're familiar with them. Power and speed on your engraving. And then on your cutting, you've got your power and speed and frequency. Frequency is another one that confuses people because what it does is it doesn't affect time. It affects how often that laser fires. And so a higher frequency will fire the laser more often. And this can go as high as 60,000 hertz or as low as 1,000 hertz. So if you're getting like perforation in the corner, take it up to 3, 4, 5,000. If you're doing high speed paper cutting, I've gone as high as 60,000 hertz because I get an extremely fast pulse and a consistent output. So you got to play with these settings. We could do an entire seminar on this. So, yes. But I don't want to go down the rabbit hole too much in this.
A quick aside here to the question from Daniel, looking for the throughput settings on my screen and I can't find it. I just threw it in the chat as well, but it is under your cut line settings, the throughput setting that we were talking about earlier. It's under a cut setting. You'll find it in the path planning option there. Yes, Dave, if you can.
I'll just, yeah, so under materials. And then on the cut. Expand the cut, and there it is right there.
Yeah.
Whatever material you're in.
Perfecto. So Dave is exactly right. I mean, we really could do an entire seminar on material settings. And as we're getting up to the end of the hour here, I think we will have to call it pretty soon. What I will say, though, is to that point, and we mentioned it earlier, one of the things we've heard from you guys that you want to see a seminar on is print to cut. So that is something that Dave and I are actively working on in the background and are hoping to bring to you in the coming weeks here. But certainly things like an in-depth guide to testing materials from Laser Dave and his 30,000 hours, or an in-depth guide to, the job control to Ruby switch and things to look out for, or, first steps, that kind of thing. Certainly something that we were very happy to do. We want to make this around what you guys have asked for. So do not hesitate to drop questions in the chat, in the YouTube comments after this, and we will continue to amalgamate those, look at them. I want to
is one of those things I'm excited to actually showcase. The Trotec is unmatched in my opinion. I've never seen another laser that can do it. I mean, I was telling Don the other day I could literally cut something out with print and cut, take it out of the machine, put it back into its cutout, move it to a different location on the laser machine, use print and cut again, and the beam will literally go down the channel that cut before in a different location using the print and cut. That's how accurate it is. It still blows my mind how concise it actually is. And so next week or next month, we're going to actually set up some print and cut types files, designs on some different materials, and showcase the step-by-step process on how that process works to showcase it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if it's something that you've thought about adding to your repertoire, I would certainly encourage you to come in and check it out. It is, like Dave has talked about with bamboo, it is an application that is blowing up right now, in my experience.
For sure.
Something that is really, really exciting, and we want to, give you the opportunity to get in on the ground floor. And the addition that you need in order to, the addition of the print to cut camera is essentially all you need, and your Speedy is ready to rock.
Print and cut camera, if you got one of those, it is like an ATM. People that are using them consistently for hat patches and print and cut applications, they're making money so fast. It makes me want to change positions. The other one that's really hot right now is the Awala brand. The Awala brand tumblers.
Yeah.
They're now the new Stanley, which was the new Yeti, which is the new everything. So everybody's going after the Awala because they got the quick pop tops and everything else like that. Of course, I've got one myself. I need to engrave it.
Yes. I wasn't going to say anything, but I was surprised.
Well, my coffee cup has a Laser Dave on it. So
nice.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if only you knew somebody who had a laser.
Yeah. Maybe I need to do that. But yeah, I mean, the other thing too is we kind of hear the sounding boards coming from customers. What's hot, what's profitable, and jump on the bubbles early because you're going to be very profitable on them. Awala and bamboo are two very hot products right now, as well as print and cut. I would say they're probably the three hottest consumer-based gift products that are out there right now for making a quick buck, and I don't see them slowing down anytime soon.
100%. I will always argue that the greatest strength of the laser is its versatility, and that your business, no matter its size, could actually do all three with the same machine by and large, with a few little add-ons, and your
constant adaptation. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. With that said, I will say a great big thank you to everybody who's joined us in chat today. Certainly a big thank you to you if you're watching later on YouTube, and obviously a great big thank you to my co-host Laser Dave. As Dave said, next month, I believe we're hoping to host that print cut webinar. I don't want to promise until everything is finalized, but it is something that we are pushing really, really hard to do. And I think you guys will find a lot of value in it. And then again, I can't encourage it enough. If there's anything you want to see, please let us know, and we'll be very happy to try and tailor things in the forthcoming streams to what you guys want to see. If nothing else, though, I hope you'll join us next month, ask some more questions, get some more great feedback from you. We always love to hear new things. So in the meantime, everyone take care, and we will see you again at another Trotec Laser Live.
Thank you, everyone.